Good morning. Nice to see you all. Good morning. I'm still just a regular guy with a big job. You know, I never thought in my wildest dreams I'd ever serve in Congress, or for that matter, even run for any elective office. But like many of you, I saw a need to get involved. And today, I've never seen Americans more engaged with our government, more engaged with our founding principles, never more engaged in our founding document, the Constitution of the United States. You know, Americans sent a new majority to Washington with a clear message. That government exists to serve the people, not to rule it. And I think the American people deserve a clear commitment from us, to listen to them, to work for a smaller, less costly, and more accountable government here in Washington. And that's the idea that was at the heart of our pledge to America, a governing agenda that House Republicans outlined and issued to the American people almost a year ago. That pledge to America was designed by listening to the American people and put together by House Republicans as a document that reflected the will and the concern and the interest of the American people. We've recently marked the one-year anniversary of our pledge to America. American people want to see their leaders listening, not celebrating. But we're keeping our pledge to America. We build it by listening, and we're going to continue to listen to the American people. But before I talk to you about a report on our pledge to America, there's a different report that's out this morning, a report from the Department of Labor. And I'm sorry to say the news isn't good. Unemployment remains above 8%. The unemployment rate didn't change. And it's been that way for far too long. For over 2.5 years, unemployment's been above 8%, even though the President of the United States promised when we passed that stimulus bill that unemployment would not exceed 8%. The unemployment rate for certain groups of people, teenagers, African Americans, Hispanic, is much higher. And after 3 years of false hopes and broken promises, Americans continue to be left asking the question, where are the jobs? But all we hear from the powers that be here in Washington is more of the same. More stimulus, more taxes, more regulation, and more debt piled on the backs of our kids and grandkids. Has any of it worked? No. It's high time we trust the American people to liberate our economy from the shackles of this government. When it comes to jobs, part of our plank in our pledge to America, we pledged that we would stop the job-crushing tax increases, and we have. We voted every week to stop excessive government rate regulations from hampering our economy and the ability of employers to grow our economy. We'll soon pass the REINS Act, which would require any new regulation from this government that costs $100 million or more to be voted on up or down by both houses of the Congress. When it comes to spending, we said that we'd do something about stopping the spending binge that threatens bankruptcy for our economy and for our country. And under a Republican majority in the House, we've controlled discretionary spending. We've cut $1.2 trillion of spending over the next 10 years. We've instituted strict budget caps that will limit spending for years to come. And the caps are key for jobs because keeping government from expanding, giving the economy a chance to grow. The next step in this effort to control spending is to pass a balanced budget amendment to our Constitution. When we pass the Deficit Reduction Act this summer, it requires each house of the Congress to pass a balanced budget amendment after October 1st, but before the end of the year, giving us the maximum opportunity to have the most significant and real enforcement mechanism that you can imagine, a real requirement in the Constitution that we balance our federal budget. So that vote's coming. We need your voices to be heard in that debate for members of both the House and the Senate in both political parties. When it comes to changing the way Congress does its work, focusing on our economy instead of focusing on government, we've decided to open up the process, allow the American people to have 3 days to read every bill before it comes to the floor of the House. Novel idea. No more passing the bill so that we'll know what's in it. You know, each bill that comes to the floor has to cite which clause of the Constitution allows that provision to come to the floor of the House. We've cut some $329 million out of what it costs to run the Congress, and we're continuing to focus our efforts at saving money in terms of what it costs to run the legislative branch. And yes, after a long fight, some 5 years in my case, there are no earmarks allowed in the United States Congress anymore. To protect jobs and to protect freedom, we vowed to the American people that we would vote to repeal Obamacare. It was one of the first bills that we moved through the Congress, through the House, and it continues to sit over the United States Senate. We've rooted out special slush funds. We've moved to eliminate them. And we're going to do everything that we can to make sure that Obamacare ever, never, ever is fully implemented. In my opinion, Obamacare will ruin the best health care delivery system in the world and will bankrupt our nation. And you all remember during that debate on Obamacare, the president vowed that there would be no public funds used to support elective abortion. You remember we had the big fight over the Hyde Amendment because members of Congress from both sides of the political aisle wanted to ensure that the principle that had been the law of the land for some 25 years would be contained in this document. And the White House did everything they could to stop it, issuing an executive order, basically promising people it would do the same thing as the Hyde Amendment. Well, I knew right then and there that something was amiss. And so making sure that the Hyde Amendment becomes the law of the land once again to prohibit federal taxpayer dollars from being used to fund elective abortion was passed by the House, and we're going to continue to press to make this the law of the land. You know, respect for life has never been a political issue for me. Like I've told you, I've got 11 brothers and sisters. My mother had us one at a time. I'm sure it wasn't convenient for her. But I'm glad they're all here. But beyond the life issue, we also promised to defend the Defense of Marriage Act. And I think, you know, I have to tell you my disappointment when the Justice Department decided they were going to ignore the law of the land passed in a bipartisan way by the Congress of the United States, signed into law by President Clinton, that they were going to decide we're not going to defend this law. Well, as the Speaker of the House, I have a constitutional responsibility. I've raised my hand to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States and the laws of our country. And if the Justice Department was not going to defend this act passed by Congress, well, then we will. And we have... We have defended the law that the Congress passed. We're going to take the money away from the Justice Department, who's supposed to enforce it, and we'll use it to enforce the law. So every day this year, in the back of our minds is our pledge to America. I was bound and determined this was not going to be some political document, that it really was going to be a governing document that would guide what it was that we did every day. In addition to keeping the pledge, and part of that pledge was to listen to you and to listen to the American people every day. You helped us build this pledge. You helped us gain a majority, And it's our obligation to you to continue to listen to you and do what the American people say. I think all of you know that America is facing big challenges. Whether it's our economy here and jobs, whether it's the undermining of our values by this administration, the problems in Europe, wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, there are big challenges that face us. But I'm a big believer in America because Americans are the most resilient people on the face of the earth. And while the days don't look as bright as we'd like, inside my soul, I know that there really is a shining city on the hill. If people in this town would work together, listening to the American people, there's nothing that we can't accomplish. Just remember, all it takes is a little work. You know, I played football in high school for a guy named Jerry Faust at a boys' high school in Cincinnati. I and my 8 brothers, Muller High School. They won a lot of state football championships after I was there. But I got out of high school, I was trying to think back about what I learned from Coach Faust. And it really boiled down to this. There's nothing in this world that you can't accomplish, nothing that you can't succeed at, if you're willing to work hard enough and if you're willing to make the sacrifices that are necessary. You know, I look back over my life, look back over my career, that formula has worked pretty well. And there's not one of you here that can't look back over your own life, your own career, and realize that formula has worked very well for you too. America is the shining city on the hill. We've got big obligation. We have a lot of work to do. Help joining the fight. God bless you, and God bless our great country. Thank you. Thank you all.